right? They can't see the chin because the nose is over the chin of the goat. The chin is back here. Okay. There's something attractive about the idea that there are no objective truths. There's something attractive about the version that applies that view to just specific domains, right? Like you think there are no objective truths about matters of taste. You might think, look, there's no facts that apply to everyone everywhere, no universal objective facts about what tastes good and what tastes bad. Pickles are tasty for some people, and pickles are gross for some other people. And that's it. There's no objective truths about taste. You might have that view, and there's something attractive about that. And there's even something attractive about the version of this view that applies to everything. The version of the view that says, there are no objective truths, period, full stop, at all, about anything. Not about taste, not about morality, not about the size and shape of the earth, not about anything, right? There's something attractive about that view. And the attractive thing is that it's kind of egalitarian. If there are no objective truths, then there aren't any people who have a monopoly on the truth, right? They can't have all of the objective truths that they know and everyone else is ignorant of. So there's something nice about this view. There's a kind of egalitarianness to it. And one of the arguments that leads to any view like this, whether it's the general view, the global view, a kind of global skepticism, right? Global skepticism about the nature of truth, whether it's the claim that there are no truths at all, or whether it's some other kind of local skepticism, doubt about there being objective truths about taste, or about morality, or about mathematics, or some other local domain of discourse. Whether it's either one of these, there's a certain kind of argument that gets you to this conclusion that relies on or is centered around the notion of a perspective. The thought is, different people have different perspectives, and one perspective isn't better than some other perspective, and that's true, by the way. But that also, from these different perspectives, people have different beliefs, and if the perspectives aren't the kind of thing where some are in and of themselves better than others, then we might think the beliefs aren't the kind of things where some of them are better than others. And if it can't be the case that some beliefs are better than others, then there can't be objective truths to back up those beliefs, because that would be one way that some of them are better than others. Some of them attach to the truths, and others don't. So we conclude there are no objective truths, sort of from the idea that no perspective is better than any other perspective. That's the sort of argument you might hear. One of the superpowers, the intellectual superpowers, that you can gain by studying philosophy for a long time is the ability to spot a metaphor and distinguish it from a literal use of language, sort of very quickly. This is like one of the most underrated intellectual capacities out there. There are other ways to get it other than by studying philosophy. I just don't know what those other ways are. This is a metaphor, right? Literally speaking, a perspective, as we usually use the term, is a visual perspective, where a visual perspective is the angle and distance, and maybe some other things, relative to which you see an object, or a scene, or a vista, or something like that. You see it from a certain angle. So, for example, say we're talking about a goat. Here's a goat. Ready? Oh boy. There's its mouth, and there's an eye, and goats have horns, right? There. Goat. All right. What perspective on the goat do you have here? The side perspective here. It's like side on. You're seeing it from the side. That's your perspective on the goat, your visual perspective. And that differs from another perspective, like the head-on perspective, right? So now, okay, here we go. Ready? There. That's the nose and the eyes of the goat. There we go. Hey, Pretty good. This is the head-on perspective, right? You have a different visual perspective of the same thing. And it's true that one perspective isn't the right perspective. Which is the right perspective on the goat? Which is the right angle to look at a goat? There isn't a right angle to look at a goat. Just look at the goat however you want to look at it, or wherever you happen to be standing. That's the angle from which you see the goat. So it's just not true that independent of any other facts, some perspectives are better than others. And then, well, you're going to form beliefs based on the different perspectives that you have, right? So like this person who sees the goat from the side is going to think certain things about the goat. They're going to think that this is a unicorn, I don't know, it's got like a weird chin, a unicorn chin goat. And this person who sees the goat head on is going to think that this is like a, I don't know, like a dual horn, I don't know, skinny chin, right? They can't see the chin because the nose is over the chin of the goat. The chin is back here. Okay, so they have different beliefs that result from their perspectives. The perspective is the angle from which they see it, and then the beliefs are the things that they think based on the angle from which they are viewing the goat. Now you might think, well, look, if one perspective isn't better than any other perspective by itself, then one belief isn't better than any other belief by itself. And if you think that, then that's obviously because there isn't one fact about the way the goat is that applies to everyone. There's going to be different facts about how the goat is, well, for each different person with their different perspective. And then, of course, if you think that this is true not just of goats but of everything, then you're going to hold some form of global skepticism where you think that there are no objective truths at all. Okay, well, what's wrong with this pattern of thinking? Well, one problem is that it doesn't follow from the fact that there are different perspectives and that by themselves no perspective is the right one. It doesn't follow from that that no set of beliefs is the right set, or that no beliefs are true, objectively true, and no beliefs are objectively false. It's just false to say that the goat has one horn. The goat has two horns. You just can't see that the goat has two horns because you're looking at this thing from the side. And of course, none of that means that the person who has this belief is foolish or evil or anything like that. It just means that from where they're standing, however they got there, by no fault of their own in many cases, they can't see the other horn. And so they get left with a false belief. But the belief can still be false, right? And of course, what this shows is that some perspectives are better than other perspectives for certain things. This perspective is a better perspective when you need to count the horns. But this perspective is a better perspective when you need to see the chin or whatever. Okay, and the same thing applies when we leave the literal meaning of perspective and we go back to the metaphor. In the metaphorical usage of the notion of perspective, right, someone's perspective is not just the angle at which they see things, the literal angle from which they view objects in the world. Their perspective is, well, their history and the sorts of inclinations that they have, their brain chemistry, all sorts of stuff, right? All of that goes into the cooker. It was raining that one time, and a butterfly landed on your nose, and that changed the way you thought about things. And your grandparents used to say this or that, and one time you saw this thing, and it changed you. All of this stuff, it goes into the cooker, and it produces the kind of person that you are, and then you have a certain set of beliefs. And all of the facts about a person that produce those beliefs, all of the perspective stuff, that might not be the fault of the person. That might be just what they got dealt by the metaphorical hand of nature. There's another metaphor. Even so, none of that entails that some beliefs aren't true and other beliefs are false. Some beliefs are true and some beliefs are false. So the point of all this is just that the fact that people form beliefs from different perspectives, whether we mean that literally or metaphorically, that fact does not show that there are no objective truths about some limited domain or about some much broader domain, the global domain of all truths. In either case, it's true that people form their beliefs from different perspectives. And it's also true that by themselves, no perspective is better than any other perspective. But it doesn't follow from any of that that some beliefs aren't true and some beliefs aren't false, and that also that there is no such thing as an objective truth. None of that follows. There's also, I'll just mention, this other problem with global skepticism, which is that it's self-refuting. That will be in another lecture.